Email to Isis. I see you have a passion for ignorance, which is why you behead people to cleanse the world of knowledge. Because you consider culture a decadent concept, you blow up works of art to obliterate antiquities and the past. Since for you women are less than men, you blank them with burqas, negating their existence, confining them behind closed doors. If women bring children to school, they must have a male chaperone. Otherwise, you throw them off the highest building in the name of Allah, the most merciful, a God who, according to you, demands human sacrifice and the rape and murder of apostates and infidels. You know, Isis, it's the usual story of religion from the history you excised. The Crusaders, the Catholic monarchs, Cromwell, the Inquisition, the intolerant have always engaged in wars of religion. I wish we had grown up a little more and abandoned those primitive opinions, for that is what they are, paradoxical ideas that are true and not true at the same time, undecidable metaphors that some people choose to live by, which helps them to be healthy human beings. I regret to say you're nothing special. People like you have always existed. Hitler and Stalin, Pol Pot and Mao Zedong, Kim Jong-il and Isaias Afwerki in Eritrea, tyrants who take their peoples hostage and experiment with terror and mass murder. When you have finished remaking the world in your image yet again, turning this verdant earth into a barren desert, may I ask, will there be room in your creation for those who sing and dance and sculpt and paint and make music, write with beautiful words and tell emotional stories, who value the human spirit, the freedom of the imagination, who take delight in the plurality of peoples, who place their trust in love and live their dream? Or will those few left alive who vehemently disagree with you be refugees, fleeing the handiwork of a barbarian? I feel sorry for your parents who found a welcome refuge in Europe. You have rejected the opportunities they gave you, returning to the poverty they fled. How can they be proud of what you have now become, a dangerous, deluded madman, psychotically certain of your righteousness, in need of serious intervention? I can see why you wield such control. You are terrified of what's inside you, of what's inside each one of us. You torture others with the blackness in your own soul. Externalize the evil at your core in a desperate attempt to save yourself, blaming God for giving in to badness. Needless to say, I don't believe in your justification. How could you be sane with your suppression of women, your refusal of the feminine side of your nature? The greatest contribution I can make to humanity is to manage myself in a positive way, allowing others to do the same in their way at their own pace, accepting difference. I dare not let your madness contaminate me. I need strong boundaries to protect myself, for lunacy is alive like quicksand. If I walk in there, I'll drown. Health is a personal journey undertaken within, an ethical achievement to be worked for day by day, hardly made easy by going overseas to Syria. It's not a simple task, but a worthwhile endeavour. The benefits are felt daily in my dealings with people. So I appeal to the best in you, even though I know you cannot hear me, imprisoned as you are in your passion for ignorance. I hope that you will find peace eventually. Michael. I crept down the stairs, and there at the bottom in the hall was the biggest, sturdiest red tricycle I'd ever seen. Santee came. I could barely manage the pedals if I didn't sit down. I cycled that tricycle with my friend Frank Pelly on his bicycle, miles out the pontoon road as far as Tlyja Falls, to paint them using my paint box. Out the golf links road where we tracked a smollock's nest, the nest of a speckled thrush, high up in a ditch at MacDonald's house. As far as Manola Junction to see the woman close the gates to let the Ballina train thunder through. Then she'd give us a spin on them, holding on tight as she pushed one, then the other, creaking open again in the sudden silence. But my favourite run was up and down the path in front of our house from the Green Bay Cafe down to Mellett's Petropumps. A crate full of long bottles of oil capped with coloured foil was placed between the two Petropumps. One evening I clipped the crate of bottles with my back wheel, which toppled them over, and some of the glass bottles broke, leaking, spreading pools of oil. I was panic-stricken, but I didn't let it show. So I continued on around the second pump and back into the oil, where I upended the tricycle. This time I left it at the scene of the crime and fled. I knew Dad would be mad, so I hid under the bed upstairs. I could hear Mr. Mellett talking to him through the open window on his way home for the tea, and then I heard the chain clicking as he pushed the tricycle up the path. He left it outside and started calling for me when he reached the house, and soon his flailing arm was fishing for me under the bed. He grasped at my ankle and pulled me out, dragged me protesting down the stairs to the kitchen. There was to be no discussion, no room there for my words. My father held my left hand in his, and he started in to beat me with his right hand. As the blows rained down, I ran round and round on tippy toes, like water disappearing down a plug hole. Every time I ran past the kitchen door, I could see Mum standing in there, looking on, and she was crying too. He continued beating me on my legs and on my buttocks, working himself up into a lather of shame and of rage until I was terrorized. The beating went on and on. I was very little, 3 or 4 maybe, and to me he was a very big and heavy man. Each time we passed the kitchen door, I was darting an appeal to see if maybe she would come to my aid, but she stood there immobile, deferent. Then the battering began to be a serious matter. I was crying and sobbing so much that I wasn't able to breathe. My father was beating the living daylights out of me, beating the life out of me. He wanted me gone, out of the way. I felt the certainty of his heart's intention right down his arm. And I also knew for the first time that there was never going to be any end to this beating, no matter how short or how long that I lived. And as I caught glimpses of my mother, I also grasped with a certainty born of bitter experience that nobody was ever going to extend a hand to save me, ever. I was completely on my own. It were better if I hadn't been born, an angle on the Oedipal myth, the father who's jealous of the son. He beat me so that not being born became something I'd always have to wrestle with, an object of belief in my mind, an inscription branded into my flesh, a cancerous life without end inside my body, so profound and early an initiation into an adulthood not yet developed in me that try as I might, there'd never be any possibility of escape from what was laid down for me that evening. From the silence of a calm place next door to me, I had the certainty that I was going to die. This beating was the definitive one of the many that I remember, and it was to the death. Estocada a volapia, when the matador throws his weight onto the standing animal, is indeed the more commonplace action in bullfighting. How long the beating went on for, I don't know. I think my mother may eventually have intervened between the two of us one time with a, "That's enough now, Thomas," but I don't remember it clearly. Fate waved the green handkerchief, and I was resurrected in the kitchen. She was where I'd seen her, only kneeling before me now, wiping the tears from my face with an apron which smelt of cooking. She held me upright in her arms, clasping me to her shoulder until the sobbing, the groan, had subsided. But the irony of being comforted by this woman who hadn't intervened to save me was burningly apparent to me even then. And I've never forgotten the ambivalent question of exactly how much of a beating is enough, Thomas. And Thomas, enough for whom? The cover-up required that I sit to the table as if nothing had happened. I was to quieten the shudder of my sobs, to dry my tears, and hold my head erect. I wasn't to refer to what had happened, not to question it in any way, not to say anything whatsoever. I understood instinctively that I'd been beaten into silence. The chair was tucked in directly opposite this man who had murdered me, and to the right of this woman who'd agreed that I should be beaten to death. The three of us had our tea, plates of salad, rabbit food he called it. She gave me half a slice of ham off her plate. "I'm not going to eat all of this." It was a strange feeling looking at them from beyond the grave. They both seemed oblivious to the fact that the light had gone out. Afterwards, the man polished my shoes for baby room in the morning while the woman did the wash up, and they sang a duet. I dreamt I dwelt in marble halls. She girlishly opened up the lid of the piano, which we kept at the end of the large kitchen, so that he sang his heart out in his excellent tenor voice to her joyful accompaniment until it was bedtime, and the 2 fruit guns were produced to bribe me up to bed. My favourites were red and green, the male colours. I was tucked in, and the bedroom door was left ajar so that I could see the light like the North Star shining just for me outside on the landing. Infant Jesus, meek and mild, look on me, a little child. Pity mine and pity me, and grant me grace to come to thee. Amen. God bless Mary. God bless Daddy.
That's nice.
And this is the poem called A Vote for Love. The people of Ireland have voted for me, a homosexual man. They recognised my place. They set me in a broad street. Irish people brought the new law into being that I have an equal right to marry the person of my choice. They redeemed the word love in humanity's constitution. The mammies and the daddies, the grandpas and the nanas wrote yes. My child is cherished the same as any other. My mother wrote yes to love. She affirmed her love for her son that it was unconditional. She nourished me by writing yes for my lifetime. My father wrote yes to me. He underpinned my being with a covenant, a solemn agreement handed on from father to son. I grew up gay in Castlebar beyond the limits of language, displaced in a world without words, a disgraced outsider shamed by my nameless desires. French literature delivered me salvation, book learning that privileged absence, reader and writer both invoking death, yet looking to speech as a present possibility. Saint-Genet and Gide and Albert Camus stole creative fire from the gods to illuminate my inner male with Mediterranean descriptions of illegal sexual encounters underground, of beautiful male bodies swimming provocatively in summer heat, of exotic Parisian queens trailing miracles of the Baroque like furbelows, of imagining a solitary Sisyphus absurdly happy climbing to the top of a cold Kilpatrick. Pioneering writers wrote upon my soul. They inscribed the vellum of my skin with sexual traces. They founded me in a reality that fit. They endowed me with a language of affirmation. They grounded me in fraternity as one who is equal to another. These words I wear have set me free. They worked on mothers and fathers, constituency by constituency, on those young people home to vote, gathered on board their boat, sailing into Dublin singing She Moved Through the Fair. They flew from Ghana and Los Angeles to cast a ballot for their faggot family, from Hong Kong and San Francisco to demand freedom for their queer friends. I watched the televised map turn green as the chakra of the heart began to flow. The floodgates of Dublin Castle opened after the vote, and a rainbow of language inundated Dame Street. Men holding hands with men, women holding hands with women, men and women holding hands, lovers out in public walking above ground. They came from north and south and east and west, linking chains of cheering men and women, celebrating absence, presence, difference, sameness, dancing, waving, kissing, embracing, crying. A cacophony of car horns and sirens blaring, the unstoppable tide of a proud nation urging forward into welcoming acceptance, joy radiating outwards into the relief of speech. At last a manumission and release of fellow prisoners, at long last recognition and performance for the limitless language of love. Only silent churchmen barricaded dusty doors against the greening breath of the Holy Spirit and the swelling surge of sexual truth. It was a Catherine and Anne Louise Day who asked to have their Canadian marriage recognised by Irish courts a decade ago, a love they both proclaimed and named, a life they proudly lived out loud. They asked just to be included, not to be erased by a knowing consensus. On that joyous Saturday, all the people approved. The two women threw their open hearts to the audience, and we caught them gratefully, overturning years of hurtful judgments in the stroke of a pen. The people of Ireland have voted yes for everyone. They accepted into words what was not spoken. They acknowledged men and women who are Irish and gay. We cast a vote for love. We changed the landscape. We made a space on this tiny isle of saints and scholars for the world. And she had her fourth child, called Ruby, who was a surprise because she already had a child of one. I think she has now 4 under 4. So this was, I promised her a special surprise. So when she came to the Triskel Arts Centre, where she was sitting in the front row with her husband, Connor, and the two of them, and I read this from the stage, and they nearly passed out. It was a wonderful experience. It's called My Perfect Ruby. When I looked you in the eye, my perfect Ruby, I knew that you were here to cure diseases, to change base metal into bars of gold, and to prolong my life indefinitely. A panacea. She lamped at me and said, "See ya on Pana." More precious than diamonds, I cupped your head in my hand as you thrust into the cradle of my love, glowing red hot with life, supping at my breast, and I named you Ruby Ryan after your dad, who did the same. Come here, my perfect Ruby, you took us by surprise, girl, when you landed here, de berries, a welcome gift like, unreal. Look at the gatch of you lying on your back with your dounchy arms in the air, a bold cork ball hopper all bammed out. And from the tucht in my throat I knew, my perfect Ruby, I just knew that as a family, when your ship arrived into the safe harbour of our Leaside shore, that we were all haunted like. As I swaddle you with wealthy words from Cork, my desire for you, girl, is to create a limitless world of possibilities in which you can play happily for an eternity, to construct a safe reality ring-a-rosy round you, chained up with loving language from your mam and from your dad that you can trust implicitly. Where as much as we can make it happen, you will be free to be yourself forever, to love and break boys' hearts on Baraka, and to be loved unconditionally in return. My wishes as a young Ruby woman, blazing with light and rich with the Cork colours, you'll never have to comply nor compromise yourself, or worse, withdraw from all that life's adventure has to offer. My hope is when you fly the nest, you'll inhabit your heritage and soar with widespread wings of unconcern to become a true rebel always, my perfect Ruby, O precious daughter of mine. She lamped at me again and laughed. Come on, boy, will you chalk it down? Haven't I the bulb off you both? And haven't I ever? Up the rebels, a proud daughter of Cork. There is grief buried deep within, misplaced pain, heavy and burdensome. When I read out loud emotional poems, sorrow surfaces suddenly in the absent space between the words. Ave atque vale. I have difficulty holding on, holding back, rhythm, hiccuping inappropriate sobs, a fury of stinging tears, heartbroken. I never knew I was. When I listen to music, Bach, beautifully rendered, returned, restored, handed over, I cry at so munificent a gift. When I hear a brass band, I laugh and weep together at the trumpeting valor, head held high, pennants flying. Terry doesn't mind anymore. I don't know why that happens. When I packed the car in Spain for the journey home, Toga, the Labrador, my shadow, was absent. I found her sunk in the well of the car at the passenger seat where I usually sat, woebegone. She knew what parting meant. She sensed my heart breaking, broken. Take me with you. I embraced her and she licked my beard. When my mother died, she was 95, sleeping and not eating, a tiny figure curled among the pillows with her head resting into her shoulder like a famished fledgling, Skalton. I kissed her goodbye and left. I never saw her alive again. I can never give that knowledge voice.
And let's read the last poem for Terry.
For Terry, will I?
Yes.
Okay. This was a poem I read. It's called Epithalamium. An epithalamium is a poem or song traditionally composed to celebrate a wedding. And it was first recited on the occasion of our civil partnership ceremony on 14th of June. Now we have to apply for an upgrade.
Another party.
When I grow old and have no voice, no children there to care or to remember me, I shall always know that there was once a midsummer's day in Dublin when I was loved. Then I shall smile in the dream time, hearing once more the dawn chorus announced with trumpet blasts, and see the vivid roses burst into bloom and twine around the morning of that glorious day in June when I was finally allowed to be loved. I shall laugh inside through Stephen's Green and leave my dancing footprints in the dew so you can follow me and take your place by my side on a day which was prepared since the beginning of the world. For you are my world, and I have always loved you. Whenever I would look into your questioning eyes of blue to see myself reflected in your goodness, I could never feel afraid of others' judgment or their shame at these extolling words, as true as you have proved to be for an everyday eternity of table fellowship and fun. The sun swept to attention and saluted us at noon. We did not stand in one another's shadow when we vowed either to each 3 times before our family of like-minded friends who have supported us for better or for worse. The words were tolling in the golden air. They bathed us in light so that we shone. I shall honor you with my esteem because of your integrity. I promise to support and bear the weight of your open, unprotected soul. I promised to love you, as if ever I had stopped and needed to commence what is continuous and round as the ring you gave to me, blessed with your affection. On that laughing summer's day, the wind was cheering and the leaves on the trees were waving as we processed towards our future through O'Connell Street. Side by side, we laid our bouquet of roses out at the GPO, acknowledged those who gave their lives so we could be cherished equally, proclaimed ourselves free, and free to become better together than either of us could choose to achieve on our own. And we withdrew relevance from those who disapproved of our new and mutual Republic of Love. There is nothing I regret more than my compliance, that I was not in my life more undignified and reckless and awkward, like you, a fearless fighter, joyfully at home in foreign lands, an encourager of dreams, an explorer of the soul's secrets, and warm and tender as the pleasure of our private trysts. Whenever we shall be no more and nobody remembers us, these words of mine shall inherit the earth. They will echo in the heart of every season that there was once a midsummer's day in Dublin when I was loved. And they will sing out loud my song, repeat publicly the poem I have told about you and the treasure you endowed me with, the inestimable adventure of a meaningful life. This simple, shining truth shall belong to you immortally, that once upon a time, on a Dublin midsummer's day at noon, I always loved you. Then you will be moving in the wind and in the trees, and especially when the roses are in bloom. You will gladden with a smile or with a glance when people feel your presence in the wonder of beautiful words lingering in a room like your fragrance. The blown petals falling to earth like prayers, whispering over and over that I have always loved you, that I have loved you too.
Nothing.